Greetings lads and lasses, Lumar here, and in today's video we are going to be discussing the newest Transformers movie releasing later this year, Rise of the Beasts, and how I'm a little bit worried about how quickly things seem to be progressing in this cinematic universe. Now, I'm a pretty decent Transformers fan. I was first introduced to it in 2007 with the actually okay Michael Bay film. Yeah, it wasn't perfect, there's a lot of flaws, but I enjoyed it, and I think it was the film that introduced a lot of people into the franchise. And since then I've played the games, read comics and watched various bits of media, becoming more engrossed in this franchise. Now, unfortunately, the Bayformers movies quickly descended into complete and utter chaos. MacGuffins are introduced and quickly removed from the story. Character after character is introduced into these stories that had no time for development, making us wonder why they were included in the first place. And then instead, the last two films in this franchise just decided to make the remaining characters a bunch of crass, unlikable jerks on both sides. The length and the pacing of the films got longer and more incoherent, having long swaths of action only to fall back into long swaths of boredom. And of course, stories, genres and details just became even more incoherent, with new plots and character aspects contradicting previously established lore, and film switching between action, playing serious scenes for laughs, playing serious scenes for drama, a bunch of different government conspiracies, ancient mythology. It's just all over the place really. Now, after the last night was a bit of a disappointment financially, and the growing fatigue and weary reception of the Michael Bay story room, it was decided that the spin-off film, Bumblebee, would be retooled into a new continuity in order to make things simpler. And you know what? I think it worked pretty well. The story for Bumblebee isn't that deep, the main character doesn't even really have a main goal until the last third of the movie, and the cast is very small and simplistic. But the small amount of characters allows a lot of character development for both Charlie and Bumblebee, showing Charlie gain her fire that she once lost after her father's death, and Bumblebee growing to understand human culture and be willing to sacrifice himself for them, even after all the bad he endures. The designs for the Cybertronian characters was vivid and imaginative, being mostly perfectly realistic versions of the classic G1 designs. Despite them still mostly being just evil, the film still tries to give some of the Decepticons a sense of honor and duty to their actions.
B-127. As a member of the Autobot Resistance, you are a traitor to Cybertron, and are hereby sentenced to death.
The human characters, at their worst, are fine, and I think the main cast of humans have a lot of depth to them, either being young kids uncertain about the world, or government forces that struggle with what to do when aliens arrive on their planet. However, as I said, there isn't a lot of detail for it when it comes to the world building of this universe. We see the war at the start with the Autobots losing the battle on Cybertron, showing the power dynamic between the two groups, but that's about it. We have no information on how the war started, how big both the forces are, where Megatron is, anything like that. I should say that that's one of the main flaws with Bumblebee, in that it chooses to focus on a very personal story, but this leaves a lot of the world building around the war as an afterthought. And it means there isn't much of a foundation for future stories because we don't really know what's going on in this universe. Which brings me to Rise of the Beasts. Now, there's three critical pieces of information that we know about this film that gives a vague estimation as to what the stakes will be. For a start, all of the Beast War era characters are here, meaning that time travel is going to be a massive part of the story. Secondly, Primal says in this trailer,
Of all the threats from both your past and future, you've never faced anything like this.
Which means he isn't talking about a well-known Decepticon that Optimus would know at the time the movie takes place, meaning it won't be a Decepticon like Megatron, Shockwave, Bludgeon or Scorponok. Thirdly, Scourge is in this movie. Now, Scourge is a Cybertronian that is typically associated with Unicron, the Satan of the Transformers universe, as Unicron takes a few Decepticons and reforges them into his minions with more power, and one of them is Scourge. Now, true, this version of Scourge could have a big character change. The design for him is very different, and it wouldn't be the first time that Scourge has had a backstory change, but with Primal's warning, I feel like this could be foreshadowing Unicron. Which brings me to a problem with the way that Rise of the Beast story seems to be going. So far, the only known character that we have that has any sort of depth to them is Bumblebee. Optimus got a little bit of characterization in the previous film, but he was only on screen for a few minutes, and other characters like Arcee and Wheeljack are only on screen for a few seconds. And the human characters are going to be completely new for this story as well, so we don't have Charlie or Burns along for the ride, meaning we're going to need to characterize the other 4 Autobots as well as all the new human characters. And as I said, we don't have any world building or mythology because Bumblebee was such a low stakes character driven film. Even the original film explained in a brief flashback scenes of Megatron, who he was and how the war started. But somehow not only will this film be able to explain the war and give a good foundation for future Transformers movies, but it's also going to need to explain who these new human characters are, who these other Autobot characters are, who the Beast War characters are, and if he does end up in this film, who Unicron is. And Unicron himself is the biggest of deals in Transformers lore. There's a reason why he destroys planets. And now, if he indeed is in the film before we've even seen Megatron, Optimus is going to have to deal with either the final boss of the universe himself, or at least one of his main agents. And even if Unicron isn't in the film, we've got a time travel movie that is trying to introduce concepts and characters that might appear in future movies before we've gotten fully fleshed out details for current characters and events, which I feel is going to make the movie come across a bit rushed and clunky. Now, I'm not here to say that the film is going to be bad. The characters look great, the action sequences seem thrilling, and I'm sure that even if the plot isn't the best, it's going to be at least something unique that we haven't seen before. I'm just worried that in an effort to make the film stand out, it sidesteps some critical building blocks needed for the universe to have a solid foundation of characters and world building. Hopefully when the film comes out later this year, I'll be proven wrong, and we'll have a nice solid universe that we can go off of.
You've never faced anything like this. Let them come.
If you've enjoyed this video, maybe consider checking out some of my other works. If you want to support my channel, please consider liking and subscribing, and if you're feeling really generous, consider my Patreon. But overall, thank you for watching my video and making it to the end. I hope you've had a great day, and I'll see you later.